Joining me now to talk more about the Nairobi Mall attack and the group that has claimed responsibility is Browwyn Brunton. She is Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council's Africa Center and spent a lot of time in Somalia and researching this area. And while most people would say this is shocking and surprising, you had written that the possibility, the potential for something like this was there, and you didn't write it a week ago. It was some time ago, wasn't it?
In basically at the end of 2011, when Kenya started its military incursion into Somalia, yeah. That was shortly after al-Shabaab had tactical disagreements and left Mogadishu. And it was very clear at that time that while Somalia had been useful to these al-Qaeda-linked militants who were hiding in al-Shabaab as an incubator, Somalia was a losing proposition for al-Qaeda. Somalia historically has been very hostile to foreign jihadists, and it's a place where special forces can strike at them with impunity. The Somalis don't like them, so when they're killed, there's no political backlash like you see in Afghanistan, for example. And there are no Western targets there, really. Americans don't wander around Somalia, so the utility of having a base in that country is pretty low, given how dangerous it is and how few targets there are. Nairobi is potentially a far more promising location for this kind of a terrorist cell.
So when you heard of the news, given the fact that this was something you kind of predicted in a sense, what was your reaction?
Well, horror, of course, well, honestly, disappointment, because I think most of what's happened in Somalia over the last 5 or 6 years could have been avoided by better foreign policies towards that country, unfortunately.
So Somalia, as we see it now, it's pirates, it's al-Shabaab, it's a failed state. What are some things that we should know about this country, and also how it relates to Nairobi?
First and foremost, al-Shabaab is primarily a domestic insurgency. These are people who want to overthrow a corrupt Western-backed government. They are not primarily global jihadists intent on striking Western interests. There is a small handful of people who have capitalized on the Somali conflict and used al-Shabaab as a vehicle. The vast majority of Somalis don't like them, don't support them. This is not a Somali phenomenon. The people who committed this attack they were from everywhere. They were from Canada, they were from the United States, they were from Sweden. Only two gave Somalia as their country of origin. So we're talking about a group of people who are truly global jihadists. And that's important to understand because the Kenyans themselves have a large Somali population, and there's a real risk of a backlash to them.
In this country, the United States, there's been a lot of talk about this war on terror, rooting out terror cells, going after them, attacking them aggressively. As you look at the landscape in Kenya, what can be done to mitigate something like this, or can there be much that can be done?
Yeah, it's a long, difficult process. I mean, Kenya has been, unfortunately, a host for al-Shabaab because it's got a lot of domestic problems. A disaffected Muslim population, a youth population that's feeling hopeless and cut off from economic opportunity. And a lot of the most worrying recruits to these al-Qaeda-linked associations in Kenya are actually young Christian men. So this isn't only a Muslim phenomenon. Kenya has a lot of work to do to reform its police and to start adopting a less brutal counter-terror policy, or else the problem is going to get a lot worse.
Browwyn Brunton, thank you so much for coming in, offering us your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.